whoa. This is not the mic I'm using. I have a little lapel mic. I'm here to talk about doing a convention, but I've talked about it before, lots of people talk about it before, but specifically I'm changing the way I do things, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do a convention selling my own independent comic, my kaiju comic in my case, but any independent comic. And I've done conventions for years, and sometimes I've sold my comic. Most of the time I'm selling prints or commissions, or sometimes even bringing toys to sell. And my comic had kind of been on hiatus, and in the last year or so I've made a big comeback, put out issue 3, I've been doing other comic book work, and I'm gonna have issue 4 and 5 coming out soon too, soon being a relative term, the end of the year. And so I wanted to approach conventions a little differently. The money I make at conventions has gone up and down over the years, and it has been on a downslope lately. And I've talked about this before, where sometimes I feel like my setup's better, my art's better, but maybe it's just an oversaturated market, or who knows. But I'm not really worrying about that with this. Running late. I wanted to be out of the house a little bit before 6, and it is 6:17. Part of that is just running late, getting up late. Actually, I didn't get up late, but I'm just moving late. And I accidentally set off the house alarm. Waking up my wife, and my daughter, who was already awake, although she shouldn't be this early, was like, what's going on? Even though she kind of knew, but I had to deal with that, and I feel bad because I've left them. Hopefully they can go back to sleep for an hour or two, but I gotta go. Back last year, I went to Kaiju Brooklyn, and that was the first show where I really was pushing my comic at all, and I was still doing sort of mostly, my prints and things, but I started having a bigger comic book display. And so this is the first show this year, and the first show I've really said, I'm gonna do comics as my main thing, with art prints as a secondary thing, and I also threw in commissions. I hadn't done commissions for a while, because I have a hard time doing commissions at shows, especially when I'm by myself, because if it's busy, I can't focus, and I'm looking down, I'm not being attentive and stuff. But if I'm mostly promoting my comics, I need to make money, and commissions is the best way to do that, because here's the dirty little secret. You don't make money selling comics. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can make money, literally. And some people can make a living making comics. I'm not saying you can't. But I was watching a video of someone talking about going to a show, and they're like, I invested $1,000. Can I make it back selling my independent comic? And at the end, they're like, we did it. And I made like $1,300 over 2 or 3 days. And it's like, no, you didn't. What are you talking about? And I'm not saying you can't make that much money. I have made that much money at shows, selling prints, commissions, other things. Just comics as an indie creator for your first show, here's the thing. I don't know what they're selling their comics for, but comics in general, you make about half cover price. Maybe a little bit more if you have a good print run or something, or if you get a huge whatever. So if you sell your comic, let's say I sell my comic for $5 each, but let's say they had a trade paperback that sold for 20, or a graphic novel or whatever, and they were selling for, and so they make a profit of roughly $10 each. I'm making up numbers here, but it's in the ballpark. So to make $1,300, they would have needed to sell 26 graphic novels. I guess that's possible, but for a first-time creator, it just seems weird, And so I'm not calling them a liar, but I feel like what they probably did is they also sold some commissions, and they also sold some prints, and something like that. But anyway, I did this show, Pasadena Comiccon, near my house. It's in driving distance, so I didn't have any hotels. The only travel cost was some gas, and I had to buy parking, was $15. I have done this show before, ones like it, put on by Scott Zillner. He has a bunch of shows that are kind of differently themed, but in the same area. And usually I get an exhibitor table, so that I could sell other things like a couple old toys on the table, or just so that I'm closer to the action. You're the celebrities in the main room, whatever. And those tables are more. I think this year was in the ballpark of 300, high 200s, low 300s. And then you get an end cap or something that's more. But like for the cheapest exhibitor table, in the neighborhood of high 200s, low 300s for this one-day show. Sometimes it's, 2-day show and then the prices go up, whatever. Artist Alley tables, and I might be getting this wrong, so double check me on this. I think they were $70. And I was sort of thinking, I go to these shows, and even a bad show lately, I'll break even or maybe make $100. So it's like, well, if I'm spending $300 and I make $400, I've sold $400 worth of merchandise, but I'm only making $100. And I'm kind of stressing about it to not lose money and kind of hustling and whatever. If I get an Artist Alley table, even if I do half as well, I'm making more money and less pressure. Now, the flip is that maybe less people see my art and whatever, so what's more important? But then I kind of split the difference because they had hallway tables, and I'd been at this convention before. Sometimes hallway tables are not good, but I knew this hallway, everybody passes through it to get to the main thing, and it's well lit, and it's kind of nice, and I'm like, I'm gonna get a hallway table. $110 for a hallway table. It's unclear to me if I could have put up other things. I guess I didn't have to just put up art now that I think about it, because there was like a comics reseller to my right, and then there was an independent publisher to my left, flip those. But other people were selling toys and things. So I guess I could have put stuff, but that's not why I was there. So I set up a new version of my old setup where I made half the table comics and half of it prints, more or less. And I didn't really push the prints or man the prints. If somebody looked at them, I'd tell the prices or answer questions stuff. But usually I'm more like, hey, I got Godzilla prints and Power Ranger prints and this. I wasn't doing that. I would focus more on talking about the comics, or I'd be drawing. And I brought my standee, I'm sure I'll be throwing things up, but my Horror A4 standee, which I don't normally bring with me because I wasn't pushing the comic and it takes up a lot of real estate where I can't show prints or other things. So it's not making me money, it's just drawing attention, hopefully. It's 10:30, early birds were 9. So we've been open officially for a half hour. It's kind of slowish. A lot of people come in, like I'm right by the entrance, but I'm in a hallway, which I've never done before. The table is much cheaper. I'm actually not even clear if it counts as just an artist table or if I could have sold merch too, not that I want to today, like toys and things. A little slow, but I sold a couple copies of the comic. I did a small commission, sold a couple prints. I'm close to making table because table's so cheap here, so not so bad. Also, I have a lead on a Mountain Starbucks coffee shop that is not too far away. So I have this set up. It took me a minute to figure it out, but it collapses real easy. It opens up real easy. If I could fly with this, this is fantastic. It looks like a store display. I love it. I absolutely love it. It almost makes this redundant, but I'm trying to have a big presence right now, so I'm gonna leave it as is, but wow. I also got, I had some tabletop racks, but I got this new folding rack that I saw Matt Frank, another kaiju comic artist, I say like he's on my level, he's above my level, but I saw him doing that at Godzilla Fest San Francisco, and I asked them about it, and they sent me a link, and I bought that, and this is the first I've used it. Actually, I didn't buy it, I got it for my birthday, but it doesn't matter. It's acquired, I own it now. And it collapses down to like a small suitcase that could be like a carry-on, and it plonks up, and it's really easy to assemble. Way easier than any backdrops or photo hangers or any of those things that I've done before. And so I had my comic set up on the table where I had all 3 issues of my comic, plus the variants, plus a variant cover I did for Mighty Mascots, plus an anthology of werewolves and Unicorns and Werewolves I did, and Kid Switch I did. Any comic work that was published that I had for sale, I had out to just increase the comic book footprint. But when asked about it, I would tell about everything, but I would specifically always point to it. But I have the Kaiju A4. That's this one I wrote, that one I drew, this one had a couple things. This is the one I wrote and drew and created. And there's 3 issues of it. And then the show deal was if you buy all 3, I give you a free sticker. I had stickers that were for $3 each or 2 for $5 of the Horror and Boots, my 2 main characters. And I also had spent some time on a pitch. I've done pitches before. I had my short elevator pitch, but I also had like a couple paragraphs. Like, well, if I get just 1 sentence, it's this. And if I get more, it's this, this, and this. And I kind of did a little work on that. And I have a Horror A4 t-shirt that I wore. And I have 3 Horror A4 prints, 2 of which I kind of taped up on the front, again, to kind of brand that half of it. The 3rd small one, I foolishly forgot here. I think it's sitting over there. That was something I considered maybe doing as a giveaway if somebody bought all 3 as well. Also, anybody that was buying some Godzilla prints or Kaiju prints, I still have a few misprints of issue 3 that was missing the lettering on one page, and some of them actually gotten damaged over time. I give them away as giveaways. Hey, you're buying these Godzilla prints? Hey, here you go, try this. So a lot of this is what I've done before, except I'm focusing more on the comic stuff. Now, here's what I found. I made $205 total. There you go. I paid $110 for the table, so that's $95 profit. But it's not, because it was also $15 parking. So that's what, 85, that's $80 profit. It's $80 profit if I don't factor in any of my time, any of my printing costs, gas, or food. I did stop and buy myself food on the way for another 13 bucks or so. One of the perks of this show is I have friends in the area. So I ran into several friends. I had lunch with a friend and I had dinner with a friend, and both times they kindly treated me, which I did not expect or want or need, but it was lovely. So I didn't have to pay for those. Now, and arguably you're bringing food from home or whatever, and I did have some snacks in my backpack if I got in trouble, but I didn't have to pay for those. But my point is, my profit on my above what I paid for the table was $95. But then it goes down, you take off the breakfast I bought for $13 whatever, and the table costs or whatever, and now we're down to like $65, $70. You take out some money for printing. Now, maybe now we're down to 50. You take out, so like I did technically make money, but so little as to not matter. You know what I mean? Basically, I got to go be at that show for free and show people my comic and my work and see some of my friends and have a good time for free. It's kind of how I was. 1:15. My buddy Derek showed up, chatted for a while, made another sale, and then, yeah, just talked comics and conventions and life. And I needed to get a coffee, so I walked to this coffee shop that was awesome. And he treated me and got me a breakfast burrito. Might have been a mistake, but it was delicious. So I was away from the booth for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, which is more than I should have been. But I don't really regret it because it's a little slow and I'm not stressing about making money at this show. And it was really nice to catch up with my friend. But I didn't go there to make money. And I have made money at these shows before with different goals. That wasn't my goal. And I want to stress, I had a good time at this show. And would I have liked to have done better? Yes, but I'll tell you this. I would rather have made the exact same amount of money selling comics and not prints. But I'm realistic in that, like if I don't sell a few prints, I'm probably not gonna make table. Because going back to comics, so I sold in an 8-hour show, or I guess it was a 9-hour show with Early Bird, 4 sets of my comics. I didn't sell any of the anthology. I didn't sell any of Kid Switch. I didn't sell any Mighty Mascots. Also, weirdly, I didn't sell any of my variant covers. For issue 3, I had variant covers from 2 different artists other than myself, and I only sell them at shows and things. I don't sell them online. Didn't sell any. Anybody that was interested wanted my art, which is nice, but sometimes collectors want different ones or both or whatever. So I sold 4 sets of 3 and the free sticker. So that's $60 worth of comics I sold, which actually is like not bad. I mean, other people might think that's bad. For me, for a one-day show for an unknown comic, at this show, I felt okay about it. But if I sold $205 worth of comics, I would have been happier. Even though I'd make less money, because going into finances, depending on the print and the whatever, generally speaking, if I sell a $20 print, I'm making at least $15 on that print. If I sell $20 of comics, at best I'm making $10. So the profit margin for printing a comic and what you get back, generally speaking for everybody, but certainly for me, is just not as much. So again, I would like to sell more comics even though it would have made me less money. Now, those 4 sets were great sales because all the people were interested in comics, interested in my comics, and were like, 1, 2, 3. It wasn't a hard sell. Like, they got the sticker, but it might not even have mattered. And that is the weird thing that I found. This was a comic convention. It wasn't a Godzilla convention. It wasn't a Power Rangers convention. Now, it was pop culture. They had celebrities there. They had other stuff going on. It wasn't like an old school, just comics comic convention, but it was closer to some of the ones I usually do. And I've always had this idea that, if I'm doing a Godzilla convention, people that are buying my Godzilla prints, that should translate into my kaiju comic. It doesn't. Once in a while it does, but generally speaking, it doesn't. Now, it might be they don't like my story, my art, whatever. Sure. But that's not really the issue. That could be a separate issue. The issue usually is, hey, I have these Godzilla prints, you have a Godzilla t-shirt, you just bought a Godzilla print. By the way, I have a kaiju comic you might be interested in. If they pick it up and look at it and flip through it and go, not for me, that's on me. They're not into it. They don't like my art, they didn't like the story, fine, I could live with that. What usually happens is they're like, oh, cool, and don't even go over there and look at it. Don't even touch it, don't pick it up, barely glance at it, say they're not interested, say they don't like comics, don't say it, but And so it's just like there's no, either they only want art or they only care if it's Godzilla. It's like someone who likes Spider-Man, not other superhero comic. So there just isn't a lot of translation there. And so I'm like, well, I should be selling to comics folks because yes, there is some crossover between kaiju folks. They need to be a kaiju fan and a comic book fan, not just like someone who likes Godzilla or someone who likes Gamera or something like that. So that's why I'm trying to do my setup differently, my pitch differently, but also shows differently. I probably am not going to be able to go to the San Francisco Godzilla show this year because it conflicts with my kid's birthday. I sort of am thinking to go to Kaiju Brooklyn still. I sort of am thinking of going to Power Morphicon because it's local and it's every 2 years. But for a long time, I was prioritizing those sort of shows for money, for notoriety, for job opportunities. And I'm not saying I won't do those. I like doing those shows. But I think for my comic, especially, not just my comic, but wanting to do variant covers and just do comic work and be like a comic artist, I guess, more than I have been in the past, I'm going to be trying to do comic shows, and I'm going to be looking at shows which I normally wouldn't do because they're a little bit expensive, they're a little bit far away, I'm not sure I'll make my money. Now, I don't want to be losing tons of money, but if I can get some cheap, again, artist alley tables, hallway tables, not exhibitor tables where I'm trying to be the big shot, but just like, I just need to be at that show and not lose money is my goal. And get the comic in people's hands. If I get 10, 20, 30 comics out there at a show and come home breaking even, I'm going to consider that a success. So first of all, if you know of any shows in the California area, especially Southern California, that you think would be good for that, let me know. But even if it's one that I'd have to travel to, I will travel once or twice a year. I used to travel more, but again, kid, things like that. And I'll be traveling more in the future. But usually if I have to travel and be gone for a weekend, like twice a year at this point. And right now I'm already thinking of going to Brooklyn. So we'll see. But if you have a suggestion, let me know. One thing I'm thinking about is this one called, I think it's called Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario, which is semi close to me where I could drive there. I've never been, but it's kind of like, again, just like a standard Comic-Con, no special thing for my interests and my work. But yeah, so all that being said, the new setup I have, I think, is good, but could be improved. I did order a table runner, which has just branding of me, Gazbot, not Godzilla, not my specific comic, but just like, hey, I'm Gazbot. By the way, I'm the one who does all this art. It was supposed to be, well, I was hoping it would be here earlier. It was that kind of estimated delivery, and I paid for semi-express shipping, but it didn't get here until Monday, and the show was Sunday. So I have it now for the next show. I do have a new like backdrop where it clamps onto the table and goes over, which is very good for travel, and it's easier to set up, and I do like it, but it did cause me a couple problems because since I had it set up a certain way, I had all my comic stuff here, but I kept dealing with people over by the print side for one reason or another. That's just where the transactions end up. I guess also because I have my art stuff set up there. And so when I was sitting, it was fine. But when I'd stand up, I kept bumping my head. Not where it would hurt, but I had to kind of like duck under in this. So I might need to readjust that. Also, previously I had the big backdrop behind me with the pillars, and I still own that. I don't really want to be doing double backdrops, but I do kind of wish I had something behind me because there was like a TV screen and there was the wall, and it just seemed like everything on my table looked good, but then you just saw like this ugly wall and TV and stuff, and I wished I had a black thing behind that. So I don't know, I may need to tweak that a little bit. There's tweaks happening. I'm happy with what I'm doing, but I could tell I'm like kind of relearning how to do this. The other thing is, going back to all my preparation for the pitch, didn't really pitch it, the comic. Two factors here. One, I don't like being a salesperson. I don't like being the person that stands out front putting my comic, hey, have you seen my comic, putting it in people's hands? Hey, do you like this? For a couple of reasons. One, I've done that in my life. I've worked at theme parks and that was literally what I had to do, and I don't like doing it. Because I don't like it being done to me. I hate when I walk through Artist Alley and I'm looking at stuff and they're like, oh, hey, I see, like, I just don't like it. It makes me feel uncomfortable because if I don't want to look or buy, then I feel like I'm insulting them. And if I do want to look, then I feel this weird pressure. And so I don't want to inflict on other people what I don't want inflicted on me, but it's tough because I know that's part of the game. And I know most people, don't mind, and I should really do that. I have a lot of conflicting feelings about it. But at this particular show, I was taking it easy on myself. I wasn't there for that. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it in the future. I'm not saying you're wrong to do it. People that do it are making more money than me and get more comics out there than me. So clearly I'm wrong. But it's just not, if someone approaches my table, I will talk to them, I will engage them, I'll be friendly, but I hate drawing people to my table. I want to draw people to my table with a big standee, with me drawing, with something interesting at my table, not with me going, hey buddy, come here, look at this. You like monsters? Did it do? Like, I just don't, that's not me. As much of a big mouth as I am, I don't want to trick people, force people, and it's not tricking or forcing, I don't know. I don't want to cajole people into getting my stuff. But going back to the pitch, I don't think any of the people that bought my comic did I give them even my short pitch. My pitch was literally, like the pitch I was giving was, these are my comics that I've worked on, blah, 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 blah. These ones here, the Horror 4, that's my personal comics. It's an independent kaiju comic that I wrote and drew. The first 3 issues are out. I have 2 more coming. One should be out by the end of this year. And then they might say, how much is it or whatever. It's like, oh, they're $5 each, and the deal is if you buy all 3, you get a sticker. I also have these variant covers if you're interested. Sale. That's how it went. Almost everybody that got that far bought it. I think let's say I sold 4 sets of these. Maybe there was 2 other people that were interested. Everyone else just wasn't interested in the comics, didn't come near the comics. I wasn't able to show them the comics. But the people that I was able to give that pitch to, maybe it was 8, I don't know, maybe it was a 50% conversion rate. I'm forgetting the numbers. But generally speaking, they were either interested in comics or not, and if they were interested in my personal comics and all 3 of them. The vibe I got is if I had 4 or 5, they would have got all of them. If I had the trade, they would have got that. They're like, this is yours, this is what we want. And that felt good. And those sales were the best thing, other than seeing some friends of mine. And those are the best in terms of art and business, put it that way. So I think I'm glad I was prepared to give a pitch, but no one was like, tell me what this comic is about. Didn't happen. I still think it's worth being prepared, and I'm emboldened and enheartened to try another show going in roughly the same way, making some tweaks, changing some things around, getting the table runner, maybe being a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, a little bit more outgoing. I don't know. The other thing is with commissions, I did one commission and then I did like a favor for a friend kind of commission. And I got a lot of people come by looking, and a few people asked me about how much for this, this, or this. And I quoted them kind of low prices, because normally at home in my studio, I actually quote high prices because it takes me forever and I'm slow and I'm meticulous and I'm a perfectionist and I beat myself up over it. And so I'm like, I better raise my prices, because if I charge a lot, then I do all this to myself and it feels worth it. But I used to charge like less, and then I'd almost kind of become resentful of the people because, this was so hard, but it's not their fault how I work, you know? So anyway, at shows, I can't do that. And I sort of say, it's gonna be kind of a quick sketch. I'm gonna use a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie, or just kind of slap it together and make it clear, you know, while I'm going to do my best. They're not paying for studio work. They're paying for a at-show commission. And it'll be the best version of that I could do, but I charge less, so I feel less pressure. That being said, a couple people asked me for things, and I gave them these lower prices, which, and again, I'm not just saying they're low for me, like competitively. Like if you look around what people are charging, it's about what people charge, or maybe even less. And they were all like, oh, okay, that's more than I thought. Sorry, no thanks. And that's fine. But I was like, oh, I wonder what they thought it cost. Like maybe there are people that never bought art. I'm rambling. This isn't exactly as put together as I'd like it to be, but I hopefully you got something out of it. I guess the takeaway is, if you want to promote your comic at a show specifically, spend as little as possible, because you're not going to make much, and hopefully sell a couple prints or commissions to at least defer your costs. Yeah, I'll do another one when I do another show, but that's what I got right now. So thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye.